So thank you all for joining us for our Curbside Market vendor training for 2021. We know that the season is upon us pretty soon here, so we're excited to talk about the system, kind of that back end, get you comfortable and familiar with what to do, how to set up your profile and products in the system, and really get ready for the 2021 market season with Curbside Market. Before we do that, if you do want to introduce yourself, put in the chat your name, your business, and maybe a couple of your top products, just so people can know some of the other vendors who are participating and who's out there. We'll definitely want you guys to connect and feel, of course, farmers market is a community, so feel attached to that. We do ask you to stay on mute, just for the sake of everyone's ears and being able to hear the speaker as we go, of course. So do that, and then again we will do Q&A at the end, but feel free to put questions in the chat as we go along. So we will walk through a high-level overview of what this project is, just so you make sure you know what you're getting into, and then really walk through that system, logistics, local food marketplace, which is the platform that we use for Curbside Markets, and next steps and vendor requirements. So our project, our Curbside Market project, is funded by a USDA Farmers Market Promotion Program grant. We applied in 2019 before COVID-19 was a thing, but really wanting to make farmers markets competitive in the online space. So we wanted to pilot an online ordering system for curbside order and delivery for farmers markets over the 2020 season as well as the 2021 season as a pilot to hopefully move forward into a sustainable program for the future. In the first year, last year, we did pilot at 4 farmers markets, including Clear Lake, Mason City, College Hill, and Waterloo urban farmers markets. And in year 2, we are excited to add on the Cedar Falls farmers market as well. And in general, we do have a Curbside Market landing page and then local food marketplace for each of the areas. So one for the Cedar Valley and one for North Iowa area. And really, I'm going to pass it off to Andrea Evelsizer, who is our partner from North Iowa Fresh, who's going to lead us through this training. But I failed to mention our other partners, just so you know, before we dive in, as far as the project leaders. So I'm Marie Boyd from Healthy Harvest of North Iowa, and we are the holders of the grant. So that's the fun role of doing the administrative side of things. But we do very much partner with Jody and the team over at the UNI Local Food Program in the Cedar Valley for that system. And then North Iowa Fresh is our partner and expert on the software side of things with Local Food Marketplace. So you'll also see a couple other names, Molly and Lisa, and formerly Daquan, and a couple other team members who are involved in this project along the way, but we are all here to support you. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to Andrea to walk us through things. I think.
Andrea, you're on mute.
Thank you. I can't see her.
Oh, that's a good point. Okay. Yeah, I can't see. I don't know what's going on with the screen either, but I can't see myself either, but that's fine. I can't see who the participants are. I don't know if it's, maybe I have to.
Are you on full screen?
Maybe I had to change it on my end. I don't know. That's weird. Okay. So anyways, thanks, Marie. I think we got our technical difficulties out of the way, hopefully, for the rest of the presentation. And I am going to jump right in and walk you guys through the software that we use, the local food marketplace software. I believe Marie sent out the curbside training agenda just before this meeting about an hour ago. If you did have a chance to take a look at that or give it a quick print job, that might be helpful so that you can jot down some notes if there's anything that's not clear to you, or if I say something that might prompt you to remember how to do this again when you go to enter your products and set up your pricing and items for the curbside market. A couple of things I do want to, I guess I'll go ahead and screen share here. A couple things I do want to show you. maybe you need to let me screen share.
Man, text not. I'm gonna stop sharing my screen and maybe that'll let you go ahead. I'll mention that I did put a link to the agenda in the chat. So if you didn't get that in your email, you can pull that up now too. But Andrea, is it letting you share now?
Yeah, now I can do it, I think.
Awesome.
Okay, are you seeing the Cedar Valley Curbside Market page? Yes. Okay, so this is the Cedar Valley version of the local food marketplace. North Iowa has a very complementary, similar version up in the North Iowa area. So if I know that the Browns are on, if you guys go to the site, it looks slightly different. It's because there are two different sites now. Last year, we started off by sharing the North Iowa Fresh site with the North Iowa Curbside site, and we ran into some technical difficulties with customers being able to shop from the two different, I guess, market opportunities, North Iowa Fresh versus the farmers market. So this year, in order to improve the customer experience and hopefully make it a little easier for everyone, we have divided those two sites separately. So I guess technically there are three sites that work similarly, but are managed by different entities at this time. So today we're going to use, because many of you are from the Cedar Valley area, we're going to use the Cedar Valley site as your example, but it's very similar for the North Iowa folks. So you can see right here the Curbside Market homepage. A couple of things before we dive right into the Curbside Market, I did want to point out there is a landing page through Healthy Harvest that you may have seen in the past when you were signing up to become a vendor, or last year we put this together. So it does try and take the customers through an easy 3-step process of how to shop, but it also gives information to you, the vendors. So the reason I'm bringing this to your attention, if you haven't been there, it's probably good for you to know that this is out there. So if you are directing customers, if you maybe can't remember for sure the website address or whatnot, you can get them there with this Curbside Market NI web address. But also, if you're a vendor and you're looking for more information, the recordings from these presentations, this one and the last one, and also some information is on that site at the bottom. And if you click on it, you've probably been here to the apply page. At the bottom, there is information and reference materials. And the one I want to bring to your attention is this local food marketplace vendor manual. Many of the things I'm going to show you today are available also in the vendor manual. And in some cases, they have really nice videos that will walk you step by step through. And I'll reference it a little more as we go along, but in particular, knowing how to price your products and add, customize it by adding your images and things like that. That's all in this manual. And I pull it open here for you to see, but there's a lot of great information on this site. And I mean, they're the experts really about local food marketplace. And so they have created these training documents. For example, the pricing methods that I referenced are available here, and they do have these nice videos. So remember to look on that site if you're, going back to this later and you can't quite remember the steps, then go back and you can review that on the local food marketplace producer training. So to jump back to the Curbside site, this is the general site that's available for the producers and the customers. On the customer side of things, when they come to the site to make a purchase, they're going to see these menus across the top. This is obviously the home page. If they go to the product list, they're going to see what's available depending on which market they choose. So they might choose whichever one they're hoping to shop for or pick up from that week. Right now we have nothing listed, obviously, because we're in the off season. But during the season, that's where they will find all the products. They can search by different producers. They can search by attributes or categories. So attributes are things like if you're listing things as grass-fed beef or chemical-free or things like that. And I'll show you how to list your things that way later. But that they can search by all that. So having your products and your profiles up to date is very important for your ability to market to your customers. This is your Meet the Vendor page. So you will also see that some of the vendors have some producer images. I'm sure by the time season starts, we'll want to have profile pictures for all of the producers. We'll want to have information updated for each of the producers so that if a customer was to click on a producer, they would get a little description of that farm, what their practices are and what they're growing. For today's purposes, I have made a test producer, Andrea's test producer. And I am going to be using that one as an example as we go through. There's not much information in there right now because it's not really a real deal. So, and then if they want to shop, they will be asked to make a curbside or register as a curbside customer, create an account, and then after that, they'll be able to just log in and shop on a weekly basis. So if you're a producer, you want to log in at the bottom of the page where it says producer login. Please don't get confused with this little icon at the top, this little person icon. This is a login for customer purchases. I know that is a familiar for a lot of people for a login icon, but that will be for shopping as a customer. If you are a producer, go to the bottom of the page and click the producer login. I'm going to, I'm on the admin version of the software. So you are gonna just ignore a few things here because it's not going to look that way to you. So you will get to your producer profile when it opens up when you log in. And this is similar to what you're going to see. There's going to be a notice up at the top giving you contact information if you have questions, and then it's going to tell you which markets you are participating in, and it'll give you some information about your orders and your revenue and things like that. So once you're logged in, the information on the home page that we talked about, I know that our Curbside Market coordinators right now, I guess Jody and Marie and maybe Molly, are going to be helping to input information into the system for you initially based on your registration forms. But if you did have a change of information, or you decide you want to be more detailed or take some information off or whatever you want to do, you can go to the bottom button here, the settings button on your profile, and that will take you to this page, which will allow you to update all of your personal information. It'll be able to, if you go to the info tab, you can update all your farm description or your farming practices, and it'll also give you some information on logistics. And so if you're participating in 2 different markets, you'll want to indicate what your primary market is here, as it'll say delivered to College Hill or to Waterloo or whatnot. Put your primary market there, and then you can select which markets you are participating in so that you can list on both of those locations. If you're only participating in one, you can just click that off, click off one. Let's see here. If you want to indicate where you want your pick list sent, you can send it using commas to multiple locations. So if you have 2 different emails or you have 2 different people that need to get that information, you can send it to 2 different people. So, and I'll tell you a little more about what is a pick ticket as we get to that point in the presentation. And as a default, you're going to all receive the summary pick ticket in your email. That's pretty much all the information you're going to need for this project, because our coordinators are on site. Curbside coordinators will be sorting your products out for each customer. So you won't have to identify or sort or label products per the customer. You'll just have to bring the bulk amount of whatever you're selling to the market. So for example, if you sell 10 baskets of cherry tomatoes, you don't have to mark those each for each customer. You just bring 10 baskets of cherry tomatoes over to the curbside tent at the beginning of market, and the curbside coordinators will separate those out into the appropriate customers. So, and we'll talk more a little about that in a little bit too. So these other 2 tabs, you probably won't see those. Those are related to admin. If you have there's some other little logistic things that the administrator can do for you. So if you have other questions or things that you're looking to change, just contact your site coordinator and they will help you out. So Related to products, I guess we should go right away to how to list your products. This time of year, it's the perfect time to get everything ready to display, get your site set up and get all your details and your descriptions and product pictures and all that into the system, so that when you're ready to go, when you get into the growing season and things are ready to be loaded onto the actual market site or show up on the storefront, all your products will be ready to go, and you'll just easily be able to just update the inventory. So now it's kind of the time to do this like background work or preparation for the season. So the first thing you need to do is go to the product tab along the side here. And if you click that, it'll bring you to your products. So here's where you can list all of the products that you intend to sell throughout the season. If you forget to add one, you can always add that later, but the more that you can add now, the better, because that way, like I said, when it's time to list something directly onto the store during a certain week, you will be ready to go and it'll be very quick and easy. So a couple things about adding products. The best thing to do is to add products from our bulk or our global database. And what that means is we have pre-set up a lot of products, specifically a lot of the produce products, but some of the proteins, I think, like some of the, it kind of depends on which site you're using, but some of the meats and eggs and jams and jellies and baked goods and things like that, a lot of those will be pre-set up as a global product, and it'll just make your listing move along so much faster. So, and it also helps our software system to like keep the database sort of cleaned up, and so we don't have like 5 or 10 listings of the same, cherry tomato, just named slightly different or something like that. So the best thing to do is to grab a product out of our global database. It'll speed things up for you, but you're still able to completely customize the product once you get it into your profile, so that you can make it your own. So it can show a real product picture of your actual produce and your pricing and such like that. So we'll do an example here. If you want to add a product that you intend to sell during the season, you would go to the Add Product button. You click on that, and then you would use this product search field to look for a product. So I'm going to look for a cherry tomato. So cherry tomato, chemical free, we'll say, select that one. And add it down here with the blue button, add it to your profile. So as you can see now, it shows up in your list of products that you're intending to sell through the season. So then if you click onto this cherry tomato, it will show you what has been pulled out of the global database. And like we said before, this has been set up with you, or like making it easy for you. And in using units that are appropriate for farmers markets. So most of the items are going to be set up using the base unit of each, which just means that you're not selling by a weight measurement, you're selling by a quantity, or it can be like, sometimes it's a bag or a quart basket or something like that. And in this case, a lot of times cherry tomatoes are, in those cardboard quarts or plastic containers or whatnot, and you've kind of organized those ahead of time, and you know how many you have to sell. So you'll be able to basically pull this product into your profile, look if the unit name is appropriate, look if your pricing is appropriate. In this case, there's just one selling unit, but if you also wanted to say you wanted to sell your cherry tomatoes also as a pint, you could also add that in as an additional unit, and then you would adjust your pricing for the pint. And the multiplier is related to, it's related to the pulling the inventory out of your total inventory. So you want, if you have your cherry tomatoes, you have 10 pounds of cherry tomatoes, and some people want to buy them as a quart and some people want to buy them as a pint. You just have to adjust the multiplier so that that is in, I guess, so that it pulls the right amount of inventory out of your total amount. So if your quart is your number one multiplier, your pint would be like a half of that. So the other items are the sort order. I mean, for this item, you don't need a weight, but for sort order, if you want your primary item to be your most, I guess, viewed or the most purchased to be a quart, because maybe it's easier to package them that way, you put a number 1, and that's going to show up first, and number 2 for the pint. But if you don't care one way or the other, if you just one way or the other, doesn't matter, then you can just leave the sort order as the default is just 99. You can adjust this image if you don't like that cherry tomato image, or maybe you're doing a multicolor cherry tomato, or they are bigger than the picture is showing and you want it to be customized. You can select an image. You can go to this location and you can upload an image to this folder. So it will ask you to pull it from your computer. And then you can select that image and update that to better represent what you are offering. If you'd also like to change the description in any way to customize that to your farm, you can do that there. You can add a tagline that would show up. The tagline shows up on the storefront when the customer is looking at the overall all the products before they like click in and see the description. So you might want to say extra juice or extra sweet as your description, and maybe that would help the producer to choose yours over maybe somebody else's, or maybe if they're multicolored, you might put that in there or something like that. So you can do anything you want related to customizing from that global product. Let's see. We talked about creating the unit. Oh, pricing. I did want to mention related to the pricing. You guys can set your prices at a rate that is appropriate for you. The system is going to mark up the product 35% in order to cover the costs of the software, the marketing, and sustainability of this project. But the customers are aware that they are paying for a convenience here. So they are pre-ordering online. It's convenient. They stop by, they drive by, they pick up their product. And with any other online shopping, there is a convenience fee that's included in that price. So be sure to set your prices at a price that's appropriate for your products. Many times, I think, especially for produce products, folks have been using the same price that they use at farmers market, and then the markup just goes on top of that for that convenience. And the customers are also paying for the guarantee that they are getting the product, because sometimes things sell out, and if they order on Curbside and the product is set aside for them before market opens, they know that that product is there for them. So I think, related to that, if there's other questions, you can check with your coordinator, but that kind of, I guess, covers the pricing topic. So we've talked about updating the pictures, updating the subscription. If the product is not in the global database, so say you go to the ad products and you are looking for let's see, some sort of bread, and you put in bread, and the only thing that comes up is baked goods bread, but maybe you want to do sourdough loaf or something like that. If it does not show up here in our global database, it's probably because we have not had a product of that same name before. If it is a fairly common product, like a sourdough loaf, you might want to reach out to your coordinator and ask them to create a global unit for your product. If you are doing something like a unique, I don't know, art or craft item that you think is not going to be done by anybody else, then you can create your own listing here. This part is important, because if you do create your own listing, your listing will need to be approved by your site administrator. So you do not want to leave this to the last minute, or you risk not being able to get that item listed onto the site in time. So usually I recommend at least a week ahead for you to be able to get everything squared away with your administrator approving the name of the new product, and then also getting your product inventory listed, and then getting it up to the site. So you sure don't want, especially if your market's on a Saturday morning, don't leave this to the last minute, so that, because sometimes your market administrator won't be there to make those quick changes. So if you do need to make a new product, instead of going to the add product, now you're going to this here, create a new product button, and you can click on that, and you will have to go through the process of entering all of the details for that product. So again, that's why choosing the global product whenever possible is your best bet, because a lot of that stuff comes pre-loaded for you. If you did need to make a product, say like a, I don't know, homemade mask. That's interesting. Never know. That's a new product from last year that we never thought we'd have on this list, but homemade something table. Then you would want to indicate how that item is going to be priced, the base unit, and then the unit name. So for something like a table, we would use the type A pricing method. So let's talk about a little bit about the pricing methods here. So there are 4 different ways of pricing products. Type A basically means that if you have products where the inventory is going to come out of one set of inventory. So like we talked about earlier on the cherry tomatoes, if you have 10 pounds of tomatoes and all of your tomato sales are going to come out of that 10 pounds, and you might package them as quarts and pints, but really it's when those 10 pounds are gone, they're gone. So those types of products are type A products. So a table, for example, you're only going to have maybe 1 or 2 of those, or maybe more, but you're not going to have need them to come out of a whole bunch, or it's not going to be multiple of the same items. So it would be a type A product. And then you would select each, because you're going to be selling them one at a time. And then you would maybe just say table as your unit. And then you give your item a price. So I don't know, $25, and multiplier of 1. And then you would select your image, which I don't have, of course, for this example. But you could select your image, write your description, and then create a product. So then that product is going to come into your listings here, homemade table. If you had an item, and if you don't put a picture in, it's going to default you to the Curbside Market Cedar Valley logo. So then you can always come back and update that later. If you do add a product, I'll go back to create a new product. And actually, I'll just go down here to this jam example. If you create a product like jam, and that would be a type C product. And the type C products lets you have multiple units under the same or different inventory for each item that you're listing. So for example, strawberry jam or mixed berry jam, raspberry jam, it's not coming out of a one individual inventory number. So like the tomato example, you aren't going to be able to take strawberry jam and mixed berry jam and raspberry jam all out of the same inventory. They're going to have separate inventory quantities. So for a type C, you're able to set, if you have 10 strawberry jams and 5 mixed berry jams and 5 raspberries, you'll be able to set all of those individual inventories. So that's what a C product does. And also, I guess another good example is like honey. If you have your honey already, it's already bottled in your 8-ounce squeeze bottle or half-pound jar or whatnot, you aren't going to, most cases, you're not going to, measure out the honey as you get the orders. You have, 10 squeeze bottles and 10 jars ready to go, and you just want to list those on your site. So those are an example of the C products. And the type B product would be something like, usually it's meat products where things are sold by the pound. And this is going to vary, depending on what you're selling. If you're selling something that you want to be able to sell, specifically by its exact weight, so like a roast or a chicken or something like that, that you're wanting to update the actual weight and charge the customer based on the exact weight, you're going to select the B product for that. something like a pound of ground beef, I would argue that that one could be a type A product because all of your ground beef is going to be packaged into 1 pound packages, and you could list that as a type A. You could put it as the unit is a 1 pound package, and then you have like 10 1 pound packages as your inventory. So so that, you know, meat can kind of go depending on if it's pre-weighed and it's already in packages. Also chickens probably can go either way, related to if you want to sell it by the exact weight of the chicken, and you know that, and it's been marked on your chicken package already by your processor, or if you're selling them by the each, like approximately 4 pound chicken is X number of dollars, you could list chickens by the each as well as a type A. So I know this is sort of the confusing part, I would say, about setting up your profile products. I think that like I said before, the easiest thing to do is if you pick something out of the global units, that's going to be set up already in an appropriate unit. If you have any questions, refer to the pricing guide that I showed you earlier related to pricing methods here on the local food marketplace producer guide, or check in with any of us. We can help you get the right setup for that too. Oops. Okay. So going back to this, I'm just reviewing, and we've talked about pricing methods. So before I go on to showing what to do when the season starts and we're ready to, you know, add products to the, you know, storefront to sell, do we have any questions on getting items into your product or your producer, listing products as a producer and getting ready for the season? Are there any other questions about how to do that? One thing I was going to point out, I pulled kohlrabi into here because I noticed that the unit is 0. And when we get into talking about listing products on the storefront, you're going to see that all of these products have a plus sign that's going to allow you to add something to the storefront to sell to a customer. And here the kohlrabi listing doesn't have a plus sign. And the reason for that is because for whatever reason, there are no units associated with that kohlrabi. So if you run into a situation where the plus sign is missing and you don't know what the deal is there, you can go into kohlrabi listing, and you'll see here that there is no selling unit. So then you can add a selling unit, and you might sell it by the each, and you might sell it for $1 and some, you know, and then when you go back, it will then be showing up as being able to list it. I did briefly talk about the attributes. If you were doing grass-fed beef and all of your beef was grass-fed, then you could list them all as grass-fed by selecting the bulk set attributes. You would have to kind of hover here over these icons to see what they say, but this one says certified grass-fed, this one says 100% grass-fed, so you would select, or if you're doing organic produce, I know that some of the producers down in the Cedar Valley do have organic produce, you might click that, and you can set bulk attributes to all of your products. So if you go through and set these up and then you realize, oh, they're all organic, do I have to go in and click every one? No, you can go in, select the whole thing, and set the attributes. And then if you did have something in there like a baked good or a cookie or something that wasn't, you could go back and unselect those. So whichever way is easier. And the same thing with sub periods. Each market is designated into a separate sub period so that you're on a different schedule depending on when your market is and when your customer is going to receive their notifications to purchase and when you're going to get your pick ticket. So you do need to make sure that the product, if you have products that differ depending on which market you're going to, you're going to want to make sure to designate them for the appropriate sub period. And you can also do that if you want all of your products available at both of the markets, you can bulk set the sub periods. Or if for some reason you only want to sell, say you only want to sell honey at Cedar Falls and not at College Hill, you can unselect the College Hill one so that the honey will not show up on the Cedar Falls, or it will show up at Cedar Falls, but it won't show up at College Hill. And you can save that. So there's a lot of customizing you can do within the system, and turning things on and off, and adjusting the prices, and adjusting how products show, which units show first. There's a lot of customization you can do, but it kind of all comes down to how, how technical you want to get with it. But we can help you with any of that if you have questions. So I don't see that there's any questions so far. So
Nope, I'm not seeing any questions in the chat, but again, a reminder to feel free to put them in there as we go so we can address them, or we'll answer them at the end.
okay. So then if you go through this process and you set up all your products ahead of time, then you're pretty good to go when the season starts. It's going to be pretty easy. Like I said earlier, you can add more products if you realize you forgot to add something. Like, you don't have to worry about that. You can always add them, but the more you do ahead, the better, because it'll be easier for us to help you get everything ready. But during the season, if you're, we're into the season and it's time to list your products to be available on a certain market, you will, like I mentioned, go to this plus sign. You can click on that and it'll ask you how much of that product that you have. So if you have maybe 10, oops, not 100, 10 cucumbers you want to list, you can put that in and then update your availability. If you have a product like jam and you go over there to the plus sign, because that was a type 3 or a C product that we showed you earlier, you can list the inventory for those products individually. So if, like I said, if you have 10 strawberry jams and 5 mixed berry jams and 10 raspberries, you can do it that way. Another way to list your availability is to go to this availability button or menu item on the side. Click there, and then you can see what you've listed for one thing, and you can also list availability using this plus sign. I guess the benefit of using the plus sign here is if you have a lot of products in a certain category. So maybe, I don't know, if you have 2 or 3 different types of tomatoes, you can select the category of tomatoes. And then when you click on there, oh, I guess you can select it here. Then it asks you how many of, oh, see, because this is the type A category, it's going to be coming all out of one inventory. So you would put 10 of the each, and it would break it into how many pints. You have 20 pints and 10 quarts, and as people buy them, it'll automatically deduct the appropriate amount of tomatoes from that. Let's see, if you need to change anything during the sales period, you can always increase your inventory or decrease your inventory as long as it's not sold. So if you go out to the field and you realize, oh, I don't have as many cherry tomatoes as I thought, you can either delete the whole listing, and it will delete both of the selling units at the same time, or you can go into here, click on the quantity listed and adjust that and say maybe you just have 5 instead of 10. The other thing you can do is if you go out there and you have way more cherry tomatoes than you expected, then you can update your listing as well. And it'll just add on to what you had there. As things get sold, it will list along this and it'll show you how much has been sold. Then once the period ends, the customers will end their shopping experience 24 hours before your designated market starts. So at that 24-hour period, the system will automatically send you a pick ticket. And so a pick ticket will list out the items that you have sold during that period and that you need to bring to the curbside market table at your respective market. So if you need to or want to review your pick ticket before the end of the sales period, you can go into this, again, to the menus here, select pick ticket, and it'll show you what you have sold during that period. And it is live, updating as people place orders. So this could give you an idea or a summary of what if you're in preparation for the market, if you want to get going on harvesting or packaging things into the appropriate size packages, you can go and review that ahead of time before the 24-hour period. I do have an example of a pick ticket that might be similar to what you might see. So this is for one of my North Iowa Fresh producers. It shows the different types. So he's got asparagus. He's got it listed as 1 pound bunches. So he's wrapping those with a rubber band and putting them into bunches, or he's selling also asparagus in bulk. So which I don't think you guys can do, because this is for wholesale, and so he can sell by the pound because he has the certified scale. But if you don't have a certified scale, you do need to sell by the bunch or by the bag or by the pint or whatnot. But for him, he had those 2 different units, and it shows that he needs to bring 49 1 pound bunches to the table, and he also has to bring 40 pounds in bulk. And in related to that, he can see, in our case, he can see who's buying which, so he knows it's one bulk customer that needs it just all in one box. So that's pretty much all you're going to need to know for curbside. You will need to bring it to the Curbside Market labeled with your producer name. And I think Jody's going to talk to you a little bit about the labeling after I'm done. But you won't have to break it out into the individual, like who's going to get all those 49 pounds of individual asparagus bunches. So that'll all be here. You can switch this to detailed pick ticket if you want to know more about the customers who have purchased. Of course, there's nothing in there right now, but it's to keep things simple. It's defaulted to the summary. Summary is what you're going to get in your email at the 24-hour period, and that's pretty much what you need to know. They do have a packing list option that you can click over, and it will also show you packing information. But again, that's more if you're packing for individual customers, and so I would stick to the pick ticket. So let's see, that's kind of, I think, to the end of my list of things to show you right now. Is there, I see there are some questions maybe in the chat now.
Yes, there are a couple questions. And Jody, I think, was going to field a couple of those as well. So we have the question of what happens if someone doesn't pick up their order, which is always a fun one. Maybe a little more related to the curbside logistics, but we could answer it now too. And it has, so really that relates to the fact that your products are pre-sold going into market, right? So a customer has agreed to purchase them, has put a credit card information in advance, and that product is assumed as purchased, unless for some reason, you show up to market and the product is not available, then we wait to charge the cards until we know we fill all the orders, because it's just easier instead of having to do reimbursements and all of that. But if they don't let us know that something has come up, so say if somebody texts us or emails us leading up to the market and we can get notification to you and whatnot, then we can have that conversation. But if they just don't show up, we charge their card, that product is considered sold, and we go from there. We didn't have that happen too often, but I know there's one situation that there was a lot of health needs this year, and we did have somebody back out just at the time of the market, and we were able to work it out with the producer in that situation. So it is sometimes a little bit of a case by case, but that's part of the fun of a pilot.
And I would just add to that is, yes, like that is part of the system, and having ourselves as coordinators and also having on-site coordinators too, that you as a producer will not have to worry about most of this. Like we will make sure that you know, if that product has been sold, that you definitely will get paid, or if we're able to alert you, in enough time, then we'll work that out between you and the producer. But yeah, that's why it is a pilot, but we definitely want to make this as easy as possible for all producers during the season. We know it's a little work right now getting your products in, But after that, we wanted to make it just another market for you to be able to sell your products and make it go as seamless as possible. Which is, I'm going to talk a little bit about logistics. So going to answer the other question that was in there as part of the logistics as we talk through here. So, all right. So the system, you know, Andrea talked about the sub periods. So each market, basically, we have a week for the sub periods, and it's different. The schedule is different based on when the market is actually happening. So for example, Saturday markets, our period is open basically Friday to Friday. So you have, as once that period is open, as a producer, you can start putting product in, or you already have product in. So you could say, I have so much of my quantity. You can do that as early as Friday before market is happening the next day. That gets a little confusing. So what we say is basically, you know, after market is done 1 week, you have a couple days to kind of regroup, and then you want to start thinking about what your quantities are for that following week. You'll update your quantities. Then the market, online market, will open for our customers. So they have about at least 1, but usually about 3 days to do their shopping. And Andrea talked about the pick ticket. So we have the online market close at least 24 hours in advance. So you can get that pick ticket at least 24 hours in advance to be able to tell you then what you need to bring to market that day and what is sold on Curbside Market. As a vendor then, or as a producer, you will want to make sure that your products will have a Curbside Market tent. That is where our customers pick up their products, and you will want to have your products to that tent to our on-site coordinator no later than 45 minutes before market starts. We realize that might be a little earlier than some of you are coming to market on that day, but I can't stress how important that is to make sure that our on-site coordinators can take your products and aggregate them and get everybody's orders filled correctly. If we're rushed, and it has happened, if it's rushed because people aren't showing up on time, there has been some mistakes to that customer, and that affects them that whole entire process. So it does take a little bit to, again, aggregate those orders and get them ready for our customers to pick up. All right, so we have on-site coordinators that I mentioned, and basically then they again are getting all of your products. And they are sorting them into each customer order. So when you get that pick ticket, it'll be a summary. And let's say, for example, you have tomatoes and peppers. You just need to know that you need to bring 10 tomatoes and 20 peppers. If that's what you sold, you bring those to that on-site coordinator. You don't have to specify who purchased those. You don't need to say this is for customer Susie and this is for customer Mark. You just bring all of that to the tent. Our on-site coordinators would say then, okay, 2 tomatoes go to Susie, 5 tomatoes go to Mark. We'll have bags set up, and they'll take products from each of our vendors that were sold to that customer and get them ready for that customer then to pick up. And when you're dropping off your products to our tent, you want to make sure that it is in something that you can pick up at the end of the day. So it doesn't matter so much to us as long as it's a nice, clean container that you brought your products in. So it could be a plastic tote that you pick up at the end of market. It could be a cardboard box, a clean box that you're reusing, and that's fine. We just want to make sure that you pick up those boxes at the end of market. We don't want our on-site coordinators to have to take an additional 20 boxes and try to recycle and find a spot for them. So whatever it is, some, depending on your product, we will have coolers there that will keep product cool. But if you want to keep your products cool and have it set aside and you want to put in a cooler and that's what you drop your product off in, and then you pick that cooler up at the end of the market, some of our vendors did that too, and that's okay. All right, next slide. All right, so just again, a little bit more about the bagging and the labeling of the products as you bring them to Curbside Market tent. Is you as the vendor are required to properly package all your products. So that means, again, following farmers market rules in terms of packaging and labeling, right? So again, you don't have to individually package those 10 tomatoes, but again, if you're selling meat, you do need to keep that meat cold. So therefore the coolers will become very handy as you transport those coolers and that meat to us. And then again, we can put it in our cooler, or again, some of our meat producers last year chose to keep that meat separate in their own cooler until the customers picked it up. And that works out great too. Keeping in mind again that, you know, a lot of our customers shopping on the curbside market are used to shopping, say online, say maybe Hy-Vee or Target or something like that. And they really have those retail expectations. So making sure that, you know, the products are clean, making sure that if you were to drop something off in a plastic bag, that it's not a reused Fairway bag, that it would be a clean plastic bag. And again, just keeping in mind that you do not have to individualize those orders, just aggregate those products, bring them to us in the tent. Labeling that is required for all farmers markets is required for Curbside Market too. So for example, your baked goods, your jams and jellies, you're going to want to make sure that you put, you know, product name, all the ingredients on there, and your business name and your name, address, and phone number, everything that you would normally for farmers markets. And curbside labels. So as you're dropping off your, say, tote again or box to the Curbside Market tent, we will supply these labels for you. And what we need to know from you basically is where it came from. So if you had 3 boxes and, you know, you are, whatever your farm name or business name is, you would put that at the top. If you had 3 boxes, you would want to label this as 1 box out of 3, 2 boxes out of 3. You can put products on there. If you don't get to that part, that's okay. The most important thing is if you have that business name on there and how many boxes you dropped off to us. So let's say, for example, we had our on-site coordinator had to run back and grab an extra supply, and which would not be far away, but they weren't there right there. You dropped off your stuff. We just really need to know which farm that came from. So when our customer ordered from this farm or this farm, we're making sure that we're giving them the correct product. 1, for their satisfaction. 2, for traceability. We need to make sure if there was any kind of outbreak or any concern that we would make sure that we gave them, again, the tomato that they ordered from farm A versus a tomato from farm B. And again, if you can put on there that you dropped off tomatoes, zucchini, and peppers in that product list, that would be great. But again, really need to know business name and number of boxes that you dropped off or totes. And again, we will supply these to you. Depending on your market and coordinator, you may have some left over from last year. We'll try to get them to you in advance of the first market, but it may be us literally handing you the labels the first market and really, you know, doing the best we can on that first market just for logistics, but we'll work all those out in all of our markets.
Yeah, and the only thing I would jump in and mention too is specifically with those product labels, and this is where it kind of depends on your farm, but we did an example like greens. Sometimes greens look all the same. So it can really help if, say, actually I think of cilantro and parsley, right? They look very similar, and if not labeled, they're very easy to mix up, especially when you're trying to do multiple things. So if you have something that looks really similar, or like it's a unit that looks similar in a quantity or whatnot, just wanting to make sure to specify this is the package of cilantro, this is the package of parsley, and making sure that's clear for our coordinator. So that's where, I mean, if it's something like you drop off a pie and a bag of apples, like we can obviously distinguish what is what, but sometimes just those nuancy products matter.
Yep, thank you for that addition.
Yeah, it scarred me.
All right. So vendor requirements. Again, this project is meant to enhance and supplement farmers markets. So you must be a paid vendor at the farmers markets that you are participating in, and you can only participate on the days that you come to market. So if you're only scheduled to come to market every other week, those are the days that you can participate in curbside, but you cannot participate in the off weeks. At the end of this training, or shortly in the next couple of days, you will get an email that will have the producer manual. We're going to ask that you read that. It's also going to be on that first website that Andrea mentioned that has all the resources for all of our vendors. It's going to be on there too. We do require that you do have liability insurance, that you agree to the curbside market pricing structure. And that is just agreeing that you realize that there is going to be that markup on your products. You agree that, you know, you're not going to compete with this project by having your own online system, aggregating with other farmers, and basically having customers pick up those aggregated products at the farmers market. We don't want that to happen, but you realize that many of you have online stores, and that is okay. Even if it's an online store where they pick up at the farmers market, that is okay. We just, again, that aggregation where we're working hard to, you know, bring everything together and get that to customers. We want to make sure that we're not competing against each other. Any license that you would need to sell your products at the farmers market, you also need those same license for curbside market. So, you know, your meat license and those types of things. And it is recommended that you have some kind of on-farm food safety training and also water testing, and also recommended that you keep good records on the farm. Again, these are all very similar things that many of your markets would probably recommend too, that we just recommend for curbside market. All right, so next steps is you are going to, again, receive an email that's going to have a copy of these slides, a copy of the recording, a survey that we would ask you please to fill out. Hopefully, I believe all of you or most of you have filled out the JOT form, which is basically your application to be part of Curbside Market. That will be included in this email too, in case you haven't for some reason. When Andrea showed you those producer profiles that we are creating for everybody, then the system sends you an email to create a login. And then that is what you would use then for the future of adding additional information and also adding your products. All right, and again, that producer manual is going to have a lot of great information. It's also going to have reminders of what typical measurements are of how you would sell products at a farmer's market. That's what we really expect on Curbside Market too. And again, we will put in as much information as you give us. I know from some of the people in my area, I have to follow back up and get some photos, but they can also, or you can also add and change photos, maybe add to the description of your farm. Customers really like to know how your products are being produced. So if you don't have that you are a conventional farmer, or you maybe are chemical free or pesticide free, however you like to describe your farm, they really like to know that. And there's a place for that on the website. I would encourage you to do that. Again, once you're in the system, you get that email from Local Food Marketplace. You are ready to go to add products, and we are here to assist you. If you have any questions at any time, please feel free to reach out to any of us.
I did want to make a quick note that for the producer profile pictures, those actually do need to be added by the coordinators. So you can update all of your your product pictures yourself through that database that I showed you earlier. But I don't know why. I guess that Local Food Marketplace wants the coordinators to have some, I don't know if they have any standards related to what the picture should look like. They want to give the coordinators the ability to kind of screen those and make sure that they all are conforming to the whatever that market's like kind of look is, I guess. So those you do need to send to your coordinator. I also wanted to point out that those products that we did list on the website, I don't know, for those of you, if anyone has not seen what something looks like at this point, I don't know, can I show that quick?
Sure. Yeah. Thank you for adding that in about the pictures, Andrea. Andrea really is our expert on the site. So I have learned a lot from her in the last couple of years, and obviously learning something every day. So you guys will all find the same thing, that you'll always learn some great things on a daily basis about this site that just really gives us a lot of things, the cool things that we do.
Yeah, it gives a lot of flexibility, and it makes it really easy for customers to be able to buy from multiple producers at one shop, I guess. So when you go to the Curbside site as a customer, you will see the products and they'll be organized in these categories. And that's the other reason why all the categories need to be approved by the coordinators, just so that once it shows on the site, it's going to show, like products together. And the naming, the way we've named them, like cucumber slicing and cucumber English or whatever. It seems a little weird sometimes, but that's so that all the cucumbers will group together when a customer sees it on the site, and all the tomatoes will list together as tomatoes cherry, or if you had a multicolored, we might list them as tomatoes cherry and then multicolored or something like that, so that when a customer looks for those, they're going to all come together instead of having some tomatoes at the beginning of the listing and some at the end. So, and again, like, it is important to have as much information on there as you want, as you can, and as accurate to your farm as possible. Because if you don't update your picture, you're just going to get this standard Curbside Market logo, and it's not as appealing to a customer to know what they're going to be getting when they purchase something. So it will help you. It will help you a lot to set this stuff up ahead of time and get all that information in there so that your products are listing more professionally, and it will, help with your sales during the season. So
Awesome, thank you. It's always good to have good visuals. So speaking of which, for the shared screen here. Yeah, so what questions do you all have? We know that's a lot of information. We know we're a little over 1 o'clock here, so there's just a lot of information to make sure that you have. So when you go off into the world as far as getting your products set up and ready for the season, we want to make sure that you have that confidence going into it. And I've seen these screens before, so it doesn't look foreign. That's always important too. But yeah. What other questions do we have? Comments?
feel free to ask the question now. You can go off mute if you want to talk to us. It's fine. It's not so bad.
Talk to Andrea.
Hi, this is Molly Morrow. I was just going to ask if people decide that they want to join partially through the season, can they do that?
Yes.
Yes.
We're all nodding.
Yeah,
we are trying to build. Yeah, we definitely are trying to build it up to have as many producers listed. But if you're thinking about it, it's better to do it ahead.
Yeah.
You'll have more time to plan.
I'm hoping people will see others selling things and maybe they'll be jealous and decide that they want to do it if they were, hesitant to do it ahead of time.
Yeah, yeah, I would say that definitely can. I think that, again, like Andrea mentioned too, just everybody, it doesn't happen instantly overnight, depending on what our schedules look like, not only for this project, for other projects. So just making sure that we have plenty of time, especially if it is producers that have more specialty products versus things that have the global products. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, the other thing we would mention too is, I know on the last call we had one of the apple producers, right? So it's not a bad thing to get things set up earlier, because even if your product is one of those later, like a sweet corn or an apple or whatever it is, on that Meet Your Vendors page, those profiles exist all season. So it's really great marketing throughout the season as well. And obviously, just like you wouldn't have any availability of product. So I totally appreciate the question, Molly, though, because we know that some people, take longer to get interested in something like this, or a little more hesitant, or whatever it is. But yeah, as much as we can peer pressure people to get in early, for making it easier for everybody, of course. But we're happy to work with them mid-season too. Yeah. Trying to think some of the other questions that have come up before too. That late listing. Oh, Andrew, I don't think you touched on this time, as far as if you have a product that rolls over availability.
Yeah, I didn't talk about that. So the administrator can decide this and help you decide this for each producer on a case-by-case basis. But there is a feature on the system where you can roll your availability in from the week before, and it can be the same as the week before, or it can be minus whatever you sold in the previous week. So for example, like meat producers that have like a set inventory, you know what's in your freezer, and once it's gone, it's gone. It can just take off, you know, what was sold that week, and then you can update it too, and take off some, you know, if you sold some at a different location. We don't recommend that for produce, or we don't recommend that for produce mostly because things change week to week. Like even some things would be similar, but you know, you might have a new product that came on that week for the first time, or you might have something that's, you know, done for the season and sold out. So we don't recommend it for produce. It's really pretty specific, and we want you to go in and make sure that you actually have those things growing week to week. But things like jam or honey or craft items, those things might be the same. You may have the same inventory, or you may know exactly what you have, and you can talk to your administrator about setting that as a I guess it preloads from the previous week. But the only thing is, the only problem with that is if you have a mixture, say, of jam and produce, you have to pick one or the other. You can't do it case by case on each product. So in that case, you'd probably be doing it week to week if you have produce. So
Right.
yeah.
Just multiple options, because we know there's different types of producers out there, right? Anna asked about, other than getting the boxes back at the end of market, is there any other contact? Not really. I mean, you get the check. But as far as on market day, no, besides getting those boxes or bags or totes or whatever you dropped your stuff off in, there really shouldn't be too much for you to do on market day. And we kind of do that intentionally, right? Like in theory, like doing that quick availability each week, getting your pick ticket and prepping that to drop off to the table. And that should really be what like work is required of you all. The rest of it is up to us to make sure we get the marketing out there, getting people shopping, and doing all of the customer interactions as far as aggregation and all that good stuff, and dropping it to them. So.
And you didn't I didn't mention earlier either, related to getting paid. All the money is going to go through, because this partnership is with North Iowa Fresh, and as a pilot project, we're using, like for all of the 3 systems that I talked about at the beginning, we're using the same bookkeeper, which is our North Iowa Fresh bookkeeper, Tim. And so he is writing checks for all the producers at all the different markets. And he does that once a month. At the end of the month, he'll aggregate all of your sales during that month, and he'll send one check to you for that. So if your check shows up from someone named Tim or North Iowa Fresh, that's why.
Yeah. Email reminders to vendors to update a bit inventory and or mark on vacation.
You guys have some automated emails to tell producers when it's time to list. The mark on vacation, if you're gone, obviously you either, if you're a produce producer and you're listing every week and you just don't put anything in, obviously nothing will show up on your inventory. I think the only producers I have in my system that use that vacation setting is the meat producers. If they have their inventory set on update from last week, then they will set it on vacation so that those items won't show on the storefront. But if you're doing your every week inventory, you don't need to do that.
Right. And I would add to that is, yes, really in the beginning, it kind of depended on market. But in the Cedar Valley, I did send out emails as we were all getting used to the schedule of reminders to make sure that, because I monitor and see what the site looks like. So we definitely want that site full with products at the beginning when it opens online for customers, because customers are getting, they can opt in for text reminders, email reminders. So if we're telling them that, hey, the cart's open, we definitely want to make sure that all our producers have all their products. And because if they come in and there's not anything in there because people have forgot, most likely they won't come back that week and shop. So we just want to make sure that that online market looks great. I know that Schaefer asked about what were weekly sales. Last year was a very different year. We got started a little late. We will admit we didn't have as many vendors in. So the weekly sales really depended market to market, but I can tell you that the more produce that we saw in the online market from week to week are typically when we would have higher sales. That's why we're doing extra training early and trying to get as many vendors in as possible, because we did hear that a lot from customers as they want more product, specifically more produce, you know, to be able to have that variety to shop from. So we learned a lot from last year and really hope that, you know, we had a lot of customers in the system and we can, you know, we had hundreds and hundreds of customers in the system, but that didn't equate to orders. And that's because we heard we just didn't have enough products and produce in there. So we're excited that we have a lot more vendors that have already signed up this year. So we're looking forward to a very, very busy year when it comes to curbside.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I would just echo all of that. I mean, it definitely depends on per producer too, like what products you're selling, what your daily sales or weekly sales will look like. Yeah, there's lots of factors that go into it. Sure.